wardrobe malfunctions could very well happen today live. I'm attempting the most difficult dance challenge ever, which is dancing intricate choreography, my own choreography, in a costume. That costume has many points of failure, as an engineer would describe, and zero redundancy. So I'm going to start at least getting one pass through, because throughout the live stream, I'm going to struggle to keep everything together. And I fully expect something to snap or fall off. If I can keep everything on me for 3 full passes, I'll be happy. But importantly, on top of that, I want to actually execute the choreography properly. That's honestly been something that I've struggled with. When I practice in athletic wear, I'm fine. When I practice in a costume, I've introduced a new set of failure points. I'll just talk for a little longer while I clear myself, center myself. The reason I decided on a costume is that, quite honestly, I've been wearing costumes the entire time. I've just stuck to costumes that are more athletic in nature, that can allow me to dance properly. But if you've ever watched dance performances, you'll notice that they have a tendency, because they're professionals, to wear what serves the dance. The dance is actually a complete art piece that includes many different elements. The dance moves, that's what people usually focus on, but people use a variety of different methods to create an entire piece. Hair, makeup, which I never wear, clothing, shoes, top to bottom, facial expressions, body, the dance moves, the musicality, everything. So now that I've talked a little bit about why I've decided to do this, this is a challenge, and this is what learning to dance is all about. You have to consistently push out of your normal boundaries and try something new, try something different. I've many points of potential failure in this outfit. As I spoke, a wardrobe malfunction did indeed almost happen, and that's part of the problem, is that when things slip and slide, they can throw me off. But I knew this because I've practiced with this costume since yesterday. Every single time something has happened with my costume, and in order to do 3 complete passes, I'm going to be having to adjust everything while I speak. Maybe what I'll do is I'll adjust on camera just to show all that's involved in dancing your own routine with a full creative mind. So first, one might have noticed that this was slipping near the end. That happens. These strings have also slipped, fallen. That's happened. This toe piece can get caught. These shoes are hardly shoes. So I've got many things to think about, and what I'll do is maybe I'll talk for a little bit and then adjust myself. Because if I adjust myself now, things are just going to happen again. Bibs and baubles are going to fall off, slip, snap. In some ways, I hope that this behind the scenes is something that can encourage people, because the tendency is we watch professional art pieces and we see a finished product. Of course, that's what people are working towards. But quite honestly, there's an entire creative process leading up to that. Some people have shown that, and some people largely ignore it because it's almost like revealing a David Blaine magic trick. By the way, speaking of David Blaine, his Ascension YouTube live, I wish they did a much better job advertising it, because I only watched the 3-hour documentary after the fact. I would have loved to watch it live, because that documentary was breathtaking. Well, last week I mentioned that I prefer travel, nature, animal documentaries. I should have added extreme sports documentaries as well. The dedication that David Blaine had to this and all of his previous stunts is only matched by other professionals in his field like Travis Pastrana. I've had an opportunity to meet a number of different types of performing artists because I travel a lot on cruise ships. And on cruise ships, every night we have performances. And you'd be surprised to know that many of them are hard acts ready to perform on land. If you add a rocking, moving ship, imagine performing daredevil, acrobatics, death-defying magic tricks. But that's what often happens. Another benefit of cruise travel is that you can often run into the performers on the Lido buffet deck. They'll willingly talk shop with you, and they also have their own workshops where they reveal just a little bit behind what they do. That mentality, the extreme sports daredevil mentality, is misunderstood. People think that it's just crazy people doing crazy things, but as somebody who also partakes in this lifestyle, the people are a lot more calculated than you think, and they've had to face life and death in a way that truly frees them to live. Most of the people that I've met who are sad, depressed, are that way because they've yet to reconcile their relationship with death. That's what I truly think. For an in-depth discussion of what's scientifically called terror management theory, Dr. Sheldon Solomon explains in full how he thinks, hypothesizes, or maybe even stricter than that, how all of us, our whole lives, everything we do is almost all driven by our fear of death. He was most recently on Lex Fridman's podcast. Lex Fridman is a former MIT AI research scientist who's now started his own podcast on Joe Rogan's advice. He has many academic and scientific luminaries on his podcast, and he's more scientifically rigorous when interviewing these people. Rogan is an everyman. He asks what the normal layperson would ask. Lix is a scientist, and he asks what a scientist would ask, and sometimes that's less accessible to a general audience, but I think we have room in the podcast world for many different levels of abstraction, and Lix is there for that. While I've talked for a little while, I think I'm going to readjust. I might disappear my head off frame for just a little bit. Actually, you know what? I'll do it on screen. I'll do it on screen because you can see some of the magic behind the art and music. Now, why I'm doing a couple of passes of dance is because I think I need a couple chances to make sure that I capture one good pass, or at the very least, in the 3 attempts, every single move will have been done well on at least one of the 3 attempts. That's how I learn and grow. I actually watch tape like a professional athlete coach and play things in slow-mo to learn the intricacies of how I'm dancing, and more importantly, how I'm making mistakes. Okay, everything has stayed on so far, and I'm really happy because, to be completely honest, injuries could occur. I've been largely lucky. This 180th day of breakdancing, dancing, tutting, and all such other forms of creation, I've been Mostly healthy because I know my body and I know how to train for longevity instead of just short bursts of high performance. I'm aiming for high performance for the rest of my life. So when you're doing that, you have a different mindset. You have goals and outcomes that you want in life that fuel your workout and other health routines. This is very different than being driven by things that are outside of you, like other people. I think that entirely too many people place their emphasis on things outside of themselves, as in people outside of themselves. And I think there's a healthier way about it. I'm known as a misanthrope, but I still have relatively healthy relationships with the people I'm around and surrounded by, mostly because we all do our own things. Many people know that how I've afforded the life of my dreams is that I make many concessions that to outsiders look like concessions, but to me seem perfectly natural. For example, I still live at home despite being in my 30s. I think more people should talk about this because for some reason there's a stigma against it, but I think that if you have goals, you have to recognize what kind of game you're living in this life. People talk about how the 1% is extracting value out of the 99, and they talk as if the 99 has absolutely no way around it. Here's a way. Utilize every single ace in your pocket. If, for example, you're largely okay with your family of origin, and they understand how difficult life has become in the current day and age, even if you have education, even if you work hard, then play that ace in a hole. Why are you trying to prove that you can win in a largely unwinnable game? If you try that, you can try it, but I think that you'll be chasing happiness for the rest of your life. And instead, I'd prefer to save those financial resources to do things that actually do have to cost me money. For example, adventure traveling, extreme sports. I've no family of origin to lean on. If I did, I'd lean on them in that way. But there are certain aspects of your life where you need to spend the money because you can't do the things you want without it. But there are aspects in your life where you can make concessions and make other arrangements. Housing is the single largest cost, at least in Canada. Vancouver is one of the most expensive housing markets in the world. Most analysts and professionals, including me, I have a background in accounting. I consider myself a professional. Think that the market has been overpriced for a long time, at least 40% or more. To me, when I hear people bragging about their houses, I think to myself, you're fucking stupid. If people came to you and told you that you were paying 40% more than something's worth, and you were not a loaded millionaire or billionaire, and you're trying to play a millionaire or billionaire's game, you know. So then people ask me, what would I be doing without a family of origin that I could live with? I'd be living in a tent, or I'd be living in an RV, or I'd move to another city. I refuse to play a game that's not winnable, because even with my education and hard work, that type of life would have still been tough, and at the end of the day, owning a house is not my priority. What's my priority is adventure, adventure, adventure. I've screamed this, yelled this until I'm blue in the face. I'm a different kind of person. I knew young that children were best left to other people. I knew young that I was an anti-natalist, that I thought nobody should have children, especially including myself. So with that decision made, that's the other point of relationship that people mosey around on or maybe never invest the energy in. That's your relationship with sex/reproduction. If you know what your relationship is with that and with death, I think you're well on your way to enjoying life more than someone who's never thought about those things. Because the thing is that whether you know, those two factors actually drive a lot of your decisions. And that's sad, because if you're being basically subconsciously driven by these factors that you never even stop to think about, you can say probably a good 100% of your actions and decisions are basically being run by these factors. And if you were to analyze them logically, you might realize that you're actually spending a lot of time, energy, and money on things that are misaligned with you. But that all starts with recognizing first what your relationship with these two things are, and second, who you truly are as a person. That who you truly are journey is a lifelong journey, because you'll change and grow as time goes on, but you have to allow that to happen. Part of the problem with these things like marriage and mortgages, they assume you're going to be the same fucking person for 25 years or your whole life. Who knows? Maybe today you have a high-paying job. Maybe tomorrow you feel like being on the street. Maybe today you like this person and you really want to suck their dick. Maybe tomorrow you want to kill them. Why are you making lifelong choices based on fleeting moments? And that's the thing. Most of the time, you're making the decisions based on just fleeting emotions here and there, but then you spend the rest of your life pretending and trying to recapture those fleeting moments as if that's a good thing to continue for the rest of your life. Well, part of it is because you signed a fucking contract that has you buy the balls and buy the cooch. So then you made basically these gamble all life bets, except the casino was called something different. Instead of being called the casino, you're entering another building that's just like the casino, but the label is marriage. And another building, kids. And that's the thing. People never think of it that way, but did you know that the casino wins on a very thin margin? Let's call it 50-some to 40-some. So they're only stacked just that tip of a balance. The closest I've ever heard is that the casino's odds are 51 to 49. To a layperson, you might think, well, those are fucking great odds. But that tiny stack is enough for the casino to win on you, or most people, most of the time. That's exactly what marriage is like. The divorce rate is actually over 50%. So you're actually going into a casino where sometimes the rate is stacked against you more than a casino. Yet we demonize gamblers and celebrate marriage. There we go. We need a wholesale rethinking of what the society is about. I mean, to be completely honest, most people will just be the norm. But the people who I speak to, and I know because people have reached out to me, are those people who have different thinking about things, who think differently about this life. And with that said, thinking differently is doing differently. Today I'm dancing with a costume, and before I dance, I again have to adjust myself to avoid injury. If I can go 3 times without a major catastrophe, I'll be happy. Okay. Dancing in these shoes with these straps has been one of the most restrictive things I've ever done as a dancer. And to be completely honest, I think it'll be something that I stay away from in the future. After 3 passes, this setup actually held up much better than yesterday because I made some changes. Enough. I'll probably invest more time and effort into costumes in the future, but maybe still with comfortable footwear, because this has been difficult. If anything, my mobility has been severely hampered by how tight I've had to tie this around my legs, which cuts off blood and circulation to them. So in some ways, I'm doing this as a challenge because I'm inserting other failure points for me to actively manage while dancing. Maybe I've overshot it a little bit this week, but I've been doing lots of experimentation in my dance progression, and something struck me this week to experiment with the costume. Maybe I'll find that I really need to concentrate more on just the dance itself, the execution, the moves, the musicality. But something in me is really drawn to dance as the entire creative piece. In many ways, dancing also includes other skills like acting, like expressing. And I'm at a point, 1.5 years, where I think that I can just sometimes try things, and whatever happens will happen. I'll adjust as appropriate and continue on this progression, because this is what I have right now: dance and art and creativity. I say it like they're small things. They're actually big, monumental, huge things.